Tonight, on First at 9 this Friday the 26th of September 2025. Parliament heats up. 2026 appropriation bill presented to Parliament today. Tensions simmer in Parliament over recent statements made by JVP's former leader Nandana Gunatilaka. Economic revival. President meets Sri Lankans living in the United States. Says the economy must be rebuilt within the next 2 years, aiming to start debt servicing by 2028. The crackdown. Western Province North Crime Division uncovers weapons and ammunition hidden by gang leader Kehilbathura Padme. Court rejects arrest warrant requests for Minister Wasantha Samarasinghe, Deputy Minister Mahinda Jayasinghe and Kaduwala Mayor Ranjan Jayalal over alleged financial fraud. To be reviewed. Sri Lanka's first report under the Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance to be reviewed at the 29th session of the UN Committee on Enforced Disappearances.
Kalin baby so rupial 90කට. Kalin baby podi හැමෝටමයි.
This is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Derana First at 9. I'm Aditya Dirasinghe joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and around the world, brought to you by the only Sri Lankan media network to rise to the pinnacle across all media platforms, recognized as the best by every survey and beloved by the people. Now, in your top story tonight, the appropriation bill for the 2026 fiscal year was presented to Parliament today by the Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Dr. Anil Jayantha Fernando. The second reading of the appropriation bill is scheduled to take place on the 27th of November. Meanwhile, tensions simmered during the parliamentary session today over a statement made by former presidential candidate of the JVP Nandana Gunatilaka, who alleged that the Director General of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption, Ranga Disanayake, was previously a member of the JVP's legal committee. On a television program yesterday, Nandana Gunatilaka, who was the JVP's presidential candidate in 1999, claimed that Ranga Disanayake was a member of the JVP's legal committee in the past. We saw former JVP leader Nandana Gunatilaka comment on Ranga Disanayake, who is the current director of the Bribery Commission. He claims Ranga Disanayake was a member of the JVP's legal committee. Was Deputy Minister Sunil Watagala also a member of that committee? The Bribery Commission should be an independent entity. Where is that level of independence? What does the government have to say about this? Do they condone this? The government is going down the communist path of governance. They are trying to follow a one country, one party system.
One country, one party system එකක් මේක apply කරන්න.
අපේ නලින් බණ්ඩාර මන්ත්‍රීවරයා ප්‍රකාශ කළා.
Minister Nalin Bandara claimed that we are attempting to establish a one-party governance system. He also claims that we are trying to impose communism. If you as the opposition continue to attack the government through anarchic and unsuccessful means, the people of this country themselves will permit a one-party system. We won't have to impose anything. You will not be able to prevent the opposition's downfall at the next election.
පහළ වැටෙනක වළක්වන්න බෑ තමුන්නාසෙලා. අර කන්ටේනර් දෙකක් යවුවානේ.
Those who released two suspicious containers were arrested. However, we see no measures being taken against those who permitted the release of the containers in question. Prompt measures were taken to uncover those who imported the containers, and prompt measures were also taken to uncover what was stored in those containers. That is very good. Similarly, what does the government have to say about those who permitted the release of the containers? Why are those arrests delayed? We wonder if those who are arrested will pass on the blame to their superior officers. There is a complaint lodged against the Director General of the Bribery Commission. Former leader of the JVP, a pioneer and a presidential candidate during the 1999 election, Nandana Gunatilaka made a serious allegation. Gunatilaka claims that when he was invited to take up the position of secretary of the JVP's legal committee, Ranga Disanayake was also called to be a member of the same committee. This is a serious allegation. We questioned about this in the morning. However, we did not get any response.
පරපතල චෝදනාව. තාපි උදේ ඇහුවා ඒක ගැන. උත්තරයක් දුන්නේ නැහැ.
මේගොල්ලන්ගේ උවමනාව තමයි මේ රටේ නිවැරදි ලෙස තීන්දුව తీරන ගන්න.
The opposition is trying to attach political labels to magistrates and judges who are making just decisions. They attempted to do the same with the Bribery Commission's Ranga Disanayake. They cannot remember how Ranga Disanayake was previously transferred to Puttalam. They also cannot remember how Prasanna Alves was transferred to Vanni. They also can't remember how Prasanna Alves was transferred to a remote jurisdiction. All those moves were politically motivated. They are trying to change the mindset of this country by depicting that the court is not independent anymore. They are trying to build an opinion that the court is politically influenced. They simply panic when legal action is being taken against their close associates.
කලබල වෙනවා. ජනාධිපතිතුමාට ආණ්ඩුක්‍රම ව්‍යවස්ථා සභාව තමයි
It is the Constitutional Council that calls interviews to name the Director General of the Bribery Commission. The President is not informed thereafter. The Constitutional Council does not approve a name that is presented to the President. That must have been the practice in the past when their government was in power, so that they can make sure the Bribery Commission functions according to their whims and fancies. That is not possible now. The Bribery Commission is an independent entity. If anyone claims that the Bribery Commission is fulfilling the needs of the government, it is considered an offence of misappropriation of power vested upon them by Parliament under the Anti-Corruption Act. It can also be considered as disrespecting the Constitutional Council, which is an independent entity. If anyone claims that the Bribery Commission is used as a political weapon within or outside Parliament, a writ order under the Constitutional Council's powers and under Section 160 of the Anti-Corruption Act can be obtained. If the Bribery Commission is accused of operating under political influence, the Commission itself can take action under Section 3 and Section 118 of the Act. We reject all allegations made by the opposition with regard to the Bribery Commission, the appointment of its officers and its Director General.
මම අවධාරණය කළා කියන්න.
ඔයාගේ හීන ලන්තේට අපිත් එක්ක යන්න අදම සනස ලයිෆ් එක ඉන්ෂුවර් වෙන්න.
President Kumara Dissanayake called on the United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres yesterday in New York. During discussions, Secretary General Guterres reaffirmed continued support for the ongoing reforms in Sri Lanka. Subsequently, President Dissanayake wrapped up his visit to the United States and took off to Japan, accepting an invitation extended by the Japanese government.
President Kumara Dissanayake, who was in the United States to attend the 80th session of the United Nations General Assembly, called on Sri Lankans residing in the US yesterday.
If anyone intends to write about Sri Lanka's history, they must focus on 2022 and 2023. The country was bankrupt at the time. Sri Lanka was hit by all challenges which typically mar ailing economies. For the first time in Sri Lankan history, an incumbent president was ousted by the people. All those facts, including the economic ailments, paved our way into power. Two challenges loomed over us. The first was to mitigate the existing economic crisis, and the second was to ensure that such an economic crisis would never emerge ever again. Within the span of a year, we were able to stabilize our collapsed economy to a degree. Sri Lanka is now being hailed as an economy that made its way out of bankruptcy most rapidly. We expect to revert to Sri Lanka's pre-crisis economic output within the next year. We will be able to achieve that milestone soon. There are four main industries earmarked as dollar generators. The highest percentage of growth across all four of those industries was recorded this year. In 2026 and 2027, we must build an economy equipped with the ability to commence debt servicing in 2028. We are working towards achieving this target as well. In 2025, state revenue exceeded the expected figure mentioned in the 2025 appropriation bill. On the matter of state expenditure, usually the government has to bear expenses that exceed the estimated expenditure head. However, this year, that too was brought down.
අයවැලීකෙනින් ඇස්තමේන්තු කරන වියදමට වඩා වැඩි වියදමක් රජයට දරන්න සිද්ධ වෙනවා.
President Dissanayake also met with UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres at the United Nations headquarters in New York last afternoon. During discussions, President Dissanayake outlined Sri Lanka's progress in terms of economic reforms as well as key government initiatives aimed at advancing the country's economic, social and political development. The UN Secretary General commended the Sri Lankan government's new progressive program. The Secretary General went on to bolster UN support for the ongoing reforms while also assuring further cooperation. Concluding his visit to the United States, President Dissanayake departed for Japan via the John F. Kennedy International Airport last night. The president is expected to embark on an official visit to Japan from the 27th to the 30th of September at the invitation of the Japanese government. Accompanying President Kumara Dissanayake is Minister of Foreign Affairs, Foreign Employment and Tourism Vijitha Herath.
Sri Lanka's first periodic report compiled in relation to the Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance will be reviewed today in Geneva at the 29th session of the United Nations Committee on Enforced Disappearances. The government's delegation will be led by the Minister of Justice and National Integration, Harshana Nayakara, and will consist of senior officials from the Ministry of Justice and National Integration, the Attorney General's Department, the Ministry of Defence and several other stakeholders. The review will take the form of a hybrid interactive dialogue between the government's delegation and the committee. Sri Lanka signed the International Convention for the Protection of All Persons from Enforced Disappearance in December 2015 and ratified the convention in May 2016. In August 2023, the initial report under the convention was submitted, outlining the measures taken to implement its obligations under the convention.
The World Education Fair 2025 entrance free. Register now.
Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Ji Hong, says China's long-standing friendship with Sri Lanka spans over 2 millennia, emphasizing that those with shared aspirations can never be separated. He made these remarks at the 76th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China in Colombo.
The 76th anniversary of the founding of the People's Republic of China was celebrated recently in Colombo. The ceremony was held under the patronage of the Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Ji Hong. Sri Lanka's Deputy Minister of Economic Development, Professor Anil Jayantha, graced the occasion as its chief guest. Former Presidents Mahinda Rajapaksa, Maithripala Sirisena and Gotabaya Rajapaksa, along with several other politicians, also attended the event.
On behalf of His Excellency President Anura Kumara Dissanayaka, the government and the people of Sri Lanka, I extend our heartfelt congratulations and warmest felicitations to the peoples of Republic of China on this auspicious occasion. I would like to recall that Sri Lanka was one of the first countries to recognize the People's Republic of China in 1949. Building on that positive momentum, Honorable Dr. Harini Amarasuriya, Prime Minister of Sri Lanka, is expected to undertake an official visit to Beijing in October this year. I would like to reiterate that Sri Lanka's One China policy is firmly embedded in our foreign policy.
As the Chinese saying goes, those with shared aspiration will not be separated by mountains and seas. The friendship between China and Sri Lanka has spanned over 2,000 years. At the start of this year, President Dissanayaka paid a successful visit to China. Our two leaders, which provided new strategic guidance for the growth of our bilateral relations. I would like to propose a toast to the prosperity of our great motherland, to the everlasting friendship between the Chinese and the Sri Lanka people, to the enduring peace. Cheers.
In the meantime, the ceremony to mark the 95th National Day of Saudi Arabia, organized by the Embassy of Saudi Arabia in Sri Lanka, was held in Colombo recently. This year marks 50 years of diplomatic relations between Sri Lanka and Saudi Arabia. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, politicians and international diplomats attended the ceremony as special guests.
Now, Dr. Nishant Samaravira, chairman of the Committee on Public Enterprises, slammed the Ceylon Electricity Board for being a key entity leading Sri Lanka to its unprecedented economic crisis. At yesterday's COPE hearing, the chairman revealed that the authorities will implement performance auditing soon within the CEB. The COPE chairman also claims that Sri Lanka's grueling economic implosion was a result of deliberate planning as opposed to an organic reaction to macroeconomic volatilities. Gross mismanagement and corruption led to the decimation of Sri Lanka's economy. Since there was no other means of depriving the people of their disposable income, the prices of goods and services were inflated. Simply issuing government notices will not facilitate price hikes of 400 or 500%. What ensued in the end was a power shortage. Gas cylinders were also in short supply. Contrary to popular opinion, the shortage was not organic but deliberately orchestrated. We intend to investigate how this facade was implemented. When shipments are not let into Sri Lanka, shortages are imminent. However, the government caused people to suffer gravely in long queues before finally allowing a ship or two to supply fuel and gas. When shipments finally arrived, gas cylinders exploded, causing deaths. The government then claimed that the better, safer gas is more expensive. The people then urged the government to import the better stock of gas since since no one wanted their loved ones to die in explosions. Consequently, the price of gas cylinders rose from 1,500 rupees to around 7,500 rupees, and surprisingly, no cylinders exploded thereafter. Fuel was imported into the country at higher rates, even though the $300 per shipment fee was not paid. Instead, ships were left stranded for some time, and then the stock of fuel was offloaded after paying a high payment of $650 per shipment. These crises were manifested. For what purpose? To increase the price of goods. This scheme was specifically engineered to deprive the people of their wealth. Your institution, the CEB, definitely had a part to play in this drama. Since you did not amend the tariff for 8 years, the CEB incurred a loss of 5,943,680 rupees. The CEB could not proceed without paying off that liability. Transmission lines were not repaired. Generation plans were not followed. Meanwhile, revenue was diverted to different channels. A thorough forensic audit must be conducted with the secretary involved. There is a significant inconsistency within this institution. The CEB is a burden to the country today. I asked CEB officers here if they think the CEB should be restructured or not. There are around 30 subsidiaries under this company, although almost everything is outsourced. I fail to see why this company exists in the first place. The CEB isn't even able to put up transmission lines without switching the lines erroneously. Please be aware that the Auditor General's Department, the COPE Committee and Parliament will intervene fully to implement performance auditing within this institution. The CEB cannot be allowed to continue this way. The CEB's performance must be audited. Although the people might not be aware of these nitty-gritties, the CEB's current predicament is the result of the lack of proper oversight. Sri Lanka's police service, political authority and Sri Lanka Customs were labelled the top 3 institutions most vulnerable to corruption by Neil Iddavala, chairman of the Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption. Citing extensive research, the chairman went on to reveal that fueling the proliferation of corruption is public apathy and the weak rule of law.
A seminar on the theme Integrity, Transparency and Good Governance for National Development was held yesterday in Colombo. The event was organized by the Sri Lanka Institute of Administrative Professionals and the Sri Lanka Administrative Service Association.
In 2024, we conducted a survey to develop a national anti-corruption action plan. Through the survey results, we were able to shortlist 10 Sri Lankan institutions which, according to the citizens of this country, are most vulnerable to corruption. The first among them is the Sri Lanka Police. Second is Sri Lanka's political authority, and third is Sri Lanka Customs. Other institutions which the public deemed prone to corruption include the Department of Immigration and Immigration, schools, the Ministry of Education, the Land Registry, provincial councils, the Sri Lanka Bureau of Foreign Employment, divisional secretariats, and the Registrar General's Department. Setting public opinion aside for a moment, we have identified through extensive investigations 5 local institutions of paramount importance for Sri Lanka's economy. Those institutions are Sri Lanka Customs, the Inland Revenue Department and its provincial revenue officers, the Excise Department, the Department of Immigration and Immigration, and the Department of Motor Traffic. Some institutions such as the National Gem and Jewellery Authority and the Geological Survey and Mines Bureau are not just dens of corruption but also havens for money laundering. The respondents to the survey also shared their opinions on the causes behind the proliferation of corruption in society. The suggested causes include the failure to duly administer law and order in the country and the citizens' reluctance to take action against corruption. Mutual consent between the one offering the bribe and the one soliciting the bribe is a usual defense taken against an accusation of bribery. However, that is a defense that must never be accepted. Welcome back. Now in more local news, officers attached to the Western Province North Crime Division today uncovered weapons and live bullets, including 2 firearms and over 520 rounds of T-56 ammunition hidden away by notorious criminal Kehel Padme. The weaponry was discovered near the Paliguda fish market.
The Criminal Investigation Department continues to question underworld figure Kehel Padme, who was recently extradited to the country from Indonesia. Interrogations conducted by the Director of the Western Province North Crime Division, Assistant Superintendent of Police Rohan Ulugala and Chief Inspector Linton Silva shed light on another consignment of weapons and ammunition. Consequent to successful raids, the police were able to recover a micropistol, a revolver, 3 T-56 T56 magazines, 520 rounds of T56 ammunition, a pair of handcuffs, and a set of clothes resembling military uniforms. The weapons and ammunition in question were found concealed at a location in close proximity to the Paliagoda Fish Market. The Western Province North Crime Division is expected to conduct further investigations into the stock of weapons and ammunition seized. Meanwhile, an individual suspected to be linked to several robberies were arrested in Nittambu today. Following investigations, police were able to seize 42 T56 live bullets and also a magazine. Police further noted that 12,050 grams of crystal methamphetamine were in possession of the 32-year-old arrestee at the time of his arrest. Meanwhile, during an inspection conducted in Lansiawatta Payagala today, the Kalathara Divisional Narcotics Control Unit arrested a suspect and seized 29 rounds of T56 ammunition and a pair of handcuffs, which were in his possession at the time of arrest. According to the police, the suspect is a former soldier attached to the Military Intelligence Corps. Meanwhile, another suspect who was known for selling narcotic-induced tablets to underage children were also arrested today in Kalathara. Around 1,000 tablets containing narcotic substances were seized by the police. In other news, a couple suspected to be involved in the distribution of methamphetamine were arrested by the Navalapitiya police today. According to reports, the couple received the methamphetamine from notorious drug trafficker Dubai Tharu. A 25-year-old individual was arrested by the Madirigiriya police today for selling narcotics to children attending tuition classes in the area. 4 grams and 10 milligrams of heroin and 7 grams and 25 milligrams of crystal methamphetamine prepared for purchase were seized by the police, along with 1.5 million rupees suspected to be earned through drug trafficking. The suspect is scheduled to be presented before the Hinguragoda Magistrates Court tomorrow.
Now, in other law and order related updates, the acting Minister of Defence has granted permission to the Western Province North Crime Division to detain and interrogate Sampath Manamperi for a 90-day period. Sampath Manamperi has been named a suspect in connection with the discovery of 2 containers containing chemicals allegedly used in the production of crystal methamphetamine in the Middaniya area.
The case pertaining to the discovery of 2 containers of precursors used in the production of crystal methamphetamine in Middaniya was taken up again before the Walasmula Magistrates Court today. Piyal and Sampath Manamperi, the duo of suspects remanded in connection with the incident, were produced before the court. Sub-Inspector Jude Wanyarachi submitted a progress report on the investigations on behalf of the Western Province North Crime Division. The Sub-Inspector stated that the acting Defence Minister has approved the detention of Sampath Manamperi for 90 days under the Prevention of Terrorism Act and submitted the detention order to the court. However, the councillor representing Sampath Manamperi objected, stating that the Western Province North Crime Division has not followed the proper legal procedure to obtain the detention order. Considering the facts presented by both parties, Walasmula Magistrate Marsha Kodituaku ruled that the acting Defence Minister's order was valid. Consequently, Manamperi was taken by Western Province North Crime Division for interrogation. In the meantime, an individual who was recently arrested by the Police Narcotics Bureau on charges of sheltering Sampath Manamperi while he was evading arrest was also produced before the court. The suspect was identified as a driver attached to the Ceylon Electricity Board's Kalathara branch. The magistrate ordered that the suspect be remanded in custody until the 8th of October. In other legal developments, the case pertaining to the alleged unlawful leasing of a property belonging to the National Workers' Institute was taken up before the Mount Lavinia Magistrates Court today. Minister of Trade Vasantha Samarasinghe, Deputy Minister of Labour Mahinda Jayasinghe and Kaduwala Mayor Ranjan Jayalal are accused of committing fraud by leasing a land with a 2-storey building owned by the National Works Institute for 3.6 million rupees in 2020 using a fraudulent deed. President's Counsel Maitri Gunaratna, who appeared on behalf of the plaintiffs, requested arrest orders against the suspects. However, Mount Lavinia Magistrate Pasan Amarasena rejected the request, stating that sufficient evidence had not been uncovered during investigations to warrant the suspect's arrest. The case is scheduled to be recalled on February 27th next year. Meanwhile, former Labour Minister Manusha Nanayakara filed an anticipatory bail request before the Colombo Magistrates Court, requesting release in case of arrest by the Bribery Commission. President's Counsel Salia Piris, appearing for Nanayakara, stated that the former Labour Minister was summoned to provide a statement regarding an alleged irregularity in sending workers to Israel for agricultural work. Having considered the facts presented, Colombo Chief Magistrate Asanka S. Bodaragama issued a notice to the Director General of the Bribery Commission to appear in court on October 2nd to make submissions. Meanwhile, the Colombo High Court directed its registrar to obtain the original case file from the 4th Magistrates Court in the case against SLPP parliamentarian Nama Rajapaksa in relation to his involvement in the controversial Krish project. The case was taken up before High Court Judge Nadi Aparna Suwadurugoda, with Rajapaksa appearing in court. A pre-trial conference is scheduled for December 18th.
Severe weather conditions have been reported across the island, with heavy overnight rain and strong winds impacting several regions. Flooding and traffic disruptions have been reported, while the Department of Meteorology has issued amber level sea advisories, warning of rough seas and strong gusty winds.
Heavy overnight rains and strong winds lashed several parts of the island. Flooding was reported in Dangedara, Beligaha, Kahaduwatta and along the Gol-Badegama main road. In Petta, strong winds brought down a tree onto a private bus on Olcott Mawatha, leading to heavy traffic, though no injuries were reported. Moreover, Tudugala Falls in Kaltura were activated by the downpour, causing flooding in the Ranagala area on the Horana-Mathugama road. Meanwhile, the Department of Meteorology has issued an amber advisory cautioning against sea voyages. The sea areas extending from Gol to Puthuvale via Mathura and Hambantota and from Puthalam to Kankasanthura via Manna will be rough or very rough, with strong gusty winds up to 55 to 65 km per hour. Naval and fishing communities are requested to be vigilant in this regard. Earlier today, a bystander captured footage of a tornado that swept across the Bambalapitia coastline. Meanwhile, Dr. Vasantha Senadira, senior scientist at the National Building Research Organisation, joined other Derana to provide an update on the landslide warnings effective at the moment.
Due to persistent heavy rainfall and the latest forecast from the Department of Meteorology, the landslide early warning message has been updated and extended until 16 hours tomorrow. Be vigilant in slope and cut slope failures and road users. If you recognize any pre-landslide signs such as development of cracks on the ground, deepened cracks and ground subsidence, slanting of trees, electrical poles, fences and telephone poles, cracks in the floor and walls of the building which are built at slopes, the sudden appearance of springs, emergency muddy water, blockage or disappearance of existing springs, please move away from the areas and move quickly to safer places.
Welcome back. Now in your business news, the Colombo Stock Exchange closed in positive territory today as a result of price gains in counters such as Dialog Asiata, Hemas Holdings and Ceylon Grain Elevators. The benchmark ASPI gained 77.93 points to close at 21,598.99, while the more liquid S&P Sri Lanka 20 gained 8.99 points to end the day at 6,111.57. Market turnover was 6.02 billion rupees. Foreign participation in market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreigners closing as net sellers worth shares 155 million rupees. Harbour Master of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, Captain Nirmal Silva, claims that following the completion of the east and west container terminals at the Port of Colombo, Sri Lanka is expected to invite investors to develop a second west container terminal. He made this statement during a media briefing held in Colombo.
The Marine Summit, Voyage Sri Lanka 2025, will be held on October 16th in Colombo, bringing together global leaders, policymakers, investors and professionals from around the world in the field of the blue economy. Organized by the Sri Lanka Export Development Board, the event will be held under the theme Unveiling the Blue Economy Potential of Sri Lanka.
Sri Lanka is strategically located in the heart of Indian Ocean with one of the busiest maritime routes passing our shores. The blue economy is no longer just a concept, it is a pillar of future growth, offering vast opportunities in trade, marine and offshore services, fisheries, tourism and sustainable marine industries. Through this summit, EDB aims to position Sri Lanka as a regional hub for marine excellence.
During the discussion, Harbour Master of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority, Captain Nirmal P. Silva, revealed future development plans for the Port of Colombo.
Concerning the developments of the Port of Colombo, the East and West container terminals are currently under construction. These projects are scheduled for completion by the end of next year. By then, the 1300-meter East container terminal and the 1400-meter West container terminal will be fully completed. Our current capacity is approximately 8.5 million 20-foot equivalent units. Following the construction of these terminals, capacity will increase by around 75% to 14.9 million TEUs. Looking further ahead, our 2030 master plan envisions the construction of a second West Container Terminal. With the current terminal scheduled for completion by 2027, we plan to invite new investors for this next phase and operate it under public-private partnerships.
බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා ඒකත් public private partnership හැටියට තමයි යන්න රජය තීරණය කරලා තියෙන මේ අවස්ථාවේදී.
Let's take a look at the day's foreign exchange rates. That's all for tonight from First at 9. For the latest developments around the clock, stay in touch with other Derana, the Sri Lankan news brand of international excellence. Thank you. Have a great night.